Today's date is July 27, 2004. I'm Carl Schmemmerhorn. Earlier this evening, Illinois State Senator Barack Obama delivered the 2004 Democratic National Convention keynote to address thousands of citizens across the country. Barack Obama's keynote address set the underlying tone for the convention earlier this evening. As a rising star in the Democratic Party, he set himself up for a promising future and a strong candidate as a United States Senator. I wouldn't be surprised if he ran for president. Now let's take a look.
In the end, that's what this election is about. Do we participate in a politics of cynicism, or do we participate in a politics of hope? John Kerry calls on us to hope. John Edwards calls on us to hope. I'm not talking about blind optimism here, the almost willful ignorance that thinks unemployment will go away if we just don't think about it, or healthcare crisis will solve itself if we just ignore it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something more substantial. It's the hope of slaves sitting around a fire singing freedom songs, the hope of immigrants setting out for distant shores, the hope of a young naval lieutenant bravely patrolling the Mekong Delta, the hope of a mill worker's son who dares to defy the odds, the hope of a skinny kid with a funny name who believes that America has a place for him too. Hope in the face of difficulty, hope in the face of uncertainty, the audacity of hope. In the end, that is God's greatest gift to us, the bedrock of this nation, a belief in things not seen, a belief that there are better days ahead.
As mentioned, this speech was made earlier this evening at the Democratic National Convention. It was broadcasted to Americans nationwide. With the election coming up, Americans are laser focused on the candidates and their stances. With incumbent President George Bush running for re-election and being challenged by Democratic candidate John Kerry, it is certainly getting heated. A quick overview of the speech shows that Obama led off his speech by telling how his parents came to the U.S. and how they were able to succeed through the color barrier and exemplified the American dream. He identified American ideals and pulled it all together by tying them to John Kerry. It is the Democratic National Convention after all. John Kerry is fighting an uphill battle against an incumbent president, so he'll need all the help he can get. Obama's speech, reinforcing John Kerry's campaign and uniting Americans behind it, has definitely aided his campaign and will likely go down as one of the greatest speeches in the 21st century. I'm sure high schoolers 16 years later will be analyzing it. Let's check in with our audience correspondent to see what the audience thinks. Bob.
Oh, thanks, Carl. First of all, we have a caller coming from New York that wants to share his thoughts on the Democratic Convention keynote address.
Hi, Bob. Frank from New York here. I just wanted to call in and say that I'm a huge fan of John Kerry and Obama. I feel like Obama really hit it on the head with his appeals to patriotism. John Kerry is one honking candidate, and old George ain't no match.
Well, thank you, Frank. So next we have a caller hailing from Texas, and she wants to share her thoughts as well.
Howdy, Bob. Faith here. Y'all at the Democratic National Meeting have no appreciation for us Republicans. Barack Obama might be all fancy with his rhetoric and all that, but he ain't gonna fool us with all those lines about hope and peace and electing that total flunky John Kerry. George Bush is the one to fix this gosh darn country.
Well, very insightful, Faith. Anyway, our last caller hails from the great state of Minnesota.
Hey, Bob. Wallace from Minnesota here. As an undecided voter, I just don't know what to think, eh? George Bush did well about 9/11, but his economic policies go against my personal beliefs. And that was quite a speech, eh?
Well, thank you, Wallace. That's a great accent you have there. Now, the general consensus, as of now, is that the speech was pretty persuasive. Let's go to our Obama speech analyst to figure out why. Jerry?
Thanks, Bob. Now I know why I was hired. Now, this speech can be broken into three main components: the appeals to logic, credibility, and emotion. Obama is right out of the gate with his speech, with his credibility appeals. His direct historical reference from the Declaration of Independence, a document obviously vital to the America we know today, directly supports his stance. If he can use such a fundamental document to argue his point, you'd have to argue against the very basic fundamentals of America to argue against him, right? It's definitely a strong credibility appeal. It sets up his next section quite well. Now, logically, we'll have to move on to the logical appeal, because Obama effortlessly connects John Kerry to America. The structure of his speech first mentions an American ideal or aspect and then relates it to John Kerry. The further repetition of John Kerry's name also is used to highlight logical connections between John Kerry and America. It works really well. And if you really paid attention, Obama used some anecdotes in his speech. These anecdotes really apply some emotional appeal to the whole thing. By mentioning the hope of Seamus, a young man enlisted in the army, it helps to create a patriotic appeal and allows the listener to relate to him in some small way. But then he hits you with the rhetorical question, are we serving Seamus as well as he serves us? That was a doozy, and hits hard emotionally as he follows up this question with evidence that suggests that we are sending people to unnecessary deaths. Death is sad. Death is bad. So implying that we are letting such a hopeful man down is a bit depressing. Well, I could go on about Obama's speech, but I only got paid for 3 pieces of evidence. Peace.
Oh, well, I guess that's all from our political analyst team, folks. We will see you next week.